While we're waiting, let me read to you the process of what we're doing today so everybody's on the same page. This is the full presentation, which you all know. In this part of the competition, you're taking on a fictional business identity and assigning a fictional business identity to us, the judges. Please make sure everyone knows who you are and who we are before we begin. You will have 25 minutes with a 5-minute cushion to describe the legal, financial, and ethical dimensions of the problem and to recommend a solution that passes muster on all 3 counts. During this time, teams will be uninterrupted. When you are finished, the judges will ask you questions for 20 minutes in our role. So if we ask hard questions, this is part of the role that we're playing. During the Q&A, both you and the judges stay in character. If after the Q&A, the judges will give you feedback outside the role, like who we are as human beings, telling you what we want to help you support and tell you how great you were and all of that. Some important things to keep in mind. The ethical aspects of your analysis are the most important part. However, these should be described in a simple, practical, common sense fashion. Using technical, philosophical terminology or basing your argument on religious or theological grounds will be considered a serious weakness. During this presentation, every member of the team must have some sort of speaking role. And I'm curious to know if Rihanna is able to log in and we can hear you. We can't hear you. So maybe what we need to do, unless somebody has a better idea, is when your part comes, maybe you could move to the desk of someone who has a phone that's working so that.
Or Gail, just move into the same room as Leanna, because Leanna was able to go, just go and sit beside her or something like that.
Is there space for you to do that? Now, that's what I thought we should do before, but that's great. If there's space to do that, take your chair. It's never perfect, you know, we just always need to work around what isn't working.
Throughout the presentation, do you want us both to be in the screen or should we just like transition?
What I want is for you both to be comfortable and to feel completely relaxed. And so if you two can be together, and it's totally fine if you can share the same screen space. I wish it were different, but I think it would be hard for someone not to be able to, see us and we see her. So if we can get her to move in with you, can that work? Can you move your chair a little bit?
That should be able to work. Yeah, so here we can have
terrific. Together. Excellent. And before we start, Liana, would you like to say hello? Because we haven't exactly heard you yet.
Oh, yeah. Hi, I'm Liana.
No, I don't mean Liana. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I mean Rihanna.
Good afternoon. I'm Rihanna McDonald. I'm a senior and I'm a journalism major. I'm excited to get started with you all today.
We're delighted to have all of you here. And I think that that's all we need to know before we start. So I trust that somebody has a phone and you will do your timing just as I'm doing timing for you. I want to know whether you want the 25 minutes or whether you want it at 30. If you've timed it at 25 and you're comfortable with that, great. But I just need to know what you want so that I'm on the same page.
Yeah, we would prefer 30 if that's okay.
And keep in mind that not a second after that.
Gotcha. Yep.
All right. Are you all ready to begin?
Yes.
Excellent. I'm going to hit start when somebody says start.
We are going to share the screen.
Okay, but has somebody on your side put in the time so you know exactly when you need to stop is my question.
Oh, yes. Yeah, we have timers going. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to hit start right now to get it started, and it's all yours. Ravi, it doesn't look like something's working.
Yeah, we're
We're not
trying.
able to share the
We
screen.
were originally going to share the screen on Rihanna's computer, and it isn't set up on mine. So I'm trying to get it set up, but there's some.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. We're just trying to see.
Okay, so we
You
canceled the
should have
timer.
sharing, yeah. And this is who was doing the sharing?
It would be me, Liana.
Liana, okay. We're,
Mm.
are you not getting a sharing button?
We're getting the button, but it's bringing us to a
To
privacy
settings.
wall. So it's now asking us to quit Zoom and reopen
It's bringing up a what?
a privacy wall.
It's just with the settings on my computer, so I can hit quit and reopen,
Okay,
and then just
yeah.
join right back.
I think that's
See if
what
that
we have to do.
works.
Yep.
Okay, let me do that.
Let's start the timing again when screen sharing's in place.
Absolutely, I shut it off. I did. I'm waiting for the next start.
Okay,
There-
is
oh.
everything
Yep.
okay?
Okay.
Let me just
Are we
make
ready?
sure.
Are we ready to start? Wait. When you say
Is that
start,
all
I'll-
good? Yeah, it looks good. Okay, perfect. Sorry about
Should-
that.
no. Shall we hit
Oh.
start together?
Yes, let's start. So, good afternoon. Thank you to the board of directors at Twitch for inviting us, Level Up Consulting Firm, to come and speak with you today. As you know, Twitch is the world's leading online live streaming platform, and you set the standard. However, September 19th, 2022, Vice published an article about the accessibility of gambling and its negative effects on your platform. A few days later, September 21st, 2022, Bloomberg published an expose about child predation on your platform. There were numerous accounts of these instances, but for now, imagine this. It's 2022, summer. There's two young girls sitting in a bedroom and they begin live streaming. A user joins the chat and suggests they move a small stuffed animal out of the frame to get a view of their full body. This viewer then suggests that the girls perform handstands, which they perform. Then this viewer suggests that they perform TikTok dances, to which the girls perform. Moments later, this viewer leaves their live stream and joins the live stream of another young girl. They suggest that she performs handstands and TikTok dances, to which she performs. This viewer was traced to the accounts of 4 other young girls and was found to be following them. This is not an imagined scenario. This is one of hundreds of thousands of stories in a 22-month Bloomberg investigative analysis that Liana will touch on later. Twitch put into place a policy update, but Oliver will later explain why this didn't work. This will affect your bottom line. There is no way of getting around the inadequate protection of youth on your platform. These exposures are causing your image to bleed through. Just recently, Bloomberg published another article essentially telling the audience that the department responsible for the safety of the community is going to be cut and was cut. And so we want to offer a multifaceted solution, and my colleagues will expand on that. speaking of my colleagues, allow me to formally introduce our team at Level Up Consulting Firm, beginning with myself, Brianna, as the lead consultant, Liana as the ethical consultant, Justin as our legal consultant, and Chris, our financial consultant, and last but not least, Oliver, our solutions consultant. Liana, please take it from here for more on our ethical approach.
Thank you so much, Rihanna. Hi, I'm Liana, the ethical consultant with Level Up Consulting Firm. My job here today is to walk you through the ethical dimensions of our current focus on the platform. This focus being the ramifications surrounding the lack of child protection on Twitch. Now, we wanted to take two main focuses in this exploration of this issue. These two main focuses being on child predation on Twitch, as well as child access to gambling streams. But we want to make very clear that these two main focuses are amongst a host of symptoms that come from the structural lack of protection. Symptoms that not only affect the health and well-being of the users, but also the financial and legal health of your company, as we'll explore soon. So in order to lay the appropriate foundation for today's presentation, we wanted to discuss the policies currently in place regarding child viewership. So we see here that there is an age requirement, meaning that no users under the age of 13 are allowed to create an account. Now we also see that if a child is under the age of majority, but at least 13, a parent must be present at all times while they're using the app, a parent that is also bound to the terms of service. Now, we also see Twitch has a dedication to implementing child sexual abuse material policies, meaning that Twitch will report and give offenders over to the proper authority. Twitch compounds on this dedication to protecting children on the platform in the November 22nd, 2022 statement entitled, "Our Ongoing Efforts to Combat Online Grooming." And while we commend these words, we have yet to see the satisfactory effects of these policies in place. Now, we also wanted to explore the current one-size-fits-all model on Twitch's platform. Now, what does this mean? This essentially means that there is a blanket set of policies and community guidelines that apply to all users. Now, we believe this blanket set of policies falls short in many regards when it comes to protecting children, but we also believe that if Twitch were to implement the proper solutions and implement the proper structural protections, they could have access to a plethora of content currently not available on the platform. Content that bans, for example, certain attire or certain video games that could be allowed as long as children were not similarly able to access this content. So by protecting children, Twitch greatly impacts its bottom line. So we wanted to, of course, begin by getting to the core of the ethical issue here today. The core of this issue being the easily deceivable age verification system when creating an account on Twitch. We, as your consulting company, wanted to see just how easily deceivable this verification system was. The results of our exploration were startling. We first began by accessing Twitch's user interface, where people began to create their account. We enter in an appropriate username, Level Up 3144 in this instance, and we enter in a password to ensure the security of our account. Next, instead of entering a phone number, we entered in an email we could have easily created as somebody under the age of 13. We click next step and we lie about our age. So in this instance, we make it seem as though we had just recently turned 13. Now we're given a few different options to secure our account, verify our email address, but we click remind me later, and we are immediately welcomed to the party. So we see that the barriers to entry are lacking in adequate protections for children. While we are over the age of both 13 and the age of majority, we could have easily been under the age of 13, 12, or even younger, and deceive the system just as easily by subtracting a few numbers from our birth date. And now we wanted to focus in on this first issue, this being child access to gambling streams. So we wanted to see just how easily we could access these streams with the same account that we had created previously as a registered 13-year-old that would not be legally able to enter casinos in most places in the United States. So we're immediately asked, what are you into? What kind of content do you want to see? We choose virtual casinos, slots, poker, different channels that focus on this kind of content. We're brought to a stream right after doing this that indicates it's intended for mature audiences. But just as any curious 13-year-old would do, we click keep watching. and were met by this streamer in particular. Now, this streamer is very similar to many streamers on the platform. In fact, in his bio, he brags that he plays high stakes casino, poker, and many more games with real money. Now, we as a registered 13-year-old are able to chat and donate to this streamer, chats that he can interact with and donations he can spotlight, as well as use to keep gambling. Now, Twitch does address gambling on its platform. You released a statement on October 18th of 2022 prohibiting the streaming of unlicensed sites that feature slots, roulette, and dice games. So what's the purpose of this ban? Now, the purpose of this ban was to protect the financial security of the users. But what about the child harm done? So we see that whether a gambling site is licensed or unlicensed, children having access to these streams is harmful no matter what. And so what exactly are these harms done? In a study in the National Library of Medicine, researchers attempted to understand the harms done to children exposed to gambling. They found that adolescents are particularly vulnerable to online gambling sites because they're colorful, they're fast-paced, they have narrative structures similar to video games. Children that view themselves as highly intelligent and invulnerable to addiction are easy prey for gambling disorders in the future. Further consequences of this exposure are a host of mental health issues, including anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation and attempts. Substance abuse disorders are prevalent, social and familial health issues, as well as impaired academic performance. But gambling isn't the only set of inappropriate content available for those underage. More harmful content includes violent, mature video games that are inappropriate for certain age groups. Researchers in the Journal of Applied Behavioral Sciences attempted to understand the consequences of child exposure to these types of video games. They found that these children had higher aggression scores on psychological tests, as well as higher risk of bullying behavior, sometimes up to 45%. Now, exposure to harmful content isn't the only problem as well. We see that children are often exposed to child predators looking to go to Twitch for their next victims. In a 22-month investigation run by Bloomberg, they found that 2,000 users, child predators, were found only following youth streamers. Some of these youths under the age of 13, and some of them above the age of 13. Hundreds of these predators were following over 1,000 accounts, daily interacting with them through chats, through whisper features, and through direct messaging. 280,000 children in total were the target of these streamers, were the target of these predators. But again, we want to make clear that this was only over the course of 22 months. So we have reason to believe that more children, hundreds if not thousands of more children, were impacted and continue to be impacted. Abusers took advantage of direct messaging, stream viewership, and the whisper feature to find their next victims. So now, as a summary of our ethical points, we find that there is no effective preventative measures for underage users. This allows youth to be exposed to inappropriate content for their age. And we find that the one-size-fits-all system that Twitch currently has in place makes child predation easier, violent viewing easier, and the consequences of gambling viewing easier as well. I'd like to now hand it off to Justin to go over the legal portion of today's presentation.
Thank you for that introduction. I'm gonna move my headset. As my colleague Liana said, my name is Justin and I'm the head of the legal portion for our consultation firm, Level Up. Now, we're largely unrestricted in terms of the content we have access to over the internet. And it's because of the various laws outlining the use of the internet that we can continue to take part in sharing the information at an unprecedented level. So now, while we continue to take part in the freedom of exploring the internet at our leisure, it's imperative that we contrast our lifestyle with that of other countries, some of which my colleagues will bring up in our later presentation, four of which are China, India, Iran, and Slovakia, which have all banned Twitch for various legal concerns over content moderation. Now, the total population, we're talking 3 billion people Twitch is no longer able to reach out and touch with. 3 billion people that we're not able to access anymore because of unrectified legal discrepancies over streaming content. Now, in the United States, we have the Supreme Court that's currently sitting on 2 cases that drastically can change the ways in which business is being conducted over the internet. Companies like Google LLC and Twitter are under fire for decisions that could basically impact the entirety of the internet in the Google LLC versus Gonzalez and Twitter Inc. versus Tamnay decisions, because it will expound upon all platform, its content, and its responsibility to its users. Now, we should be cognizant of the ethical considerations as well as the legal landslides that are presented to us as we conduct business and set the example as the world's foremost leading streaming platform. The recent case brought forth to the courts by Eric Estevillo, who is a self-proclaimed sex addict, has not only targeted Twitch in a lawsuit, but has also targeted the various female streamers that Twitch is partnered with. In the suit, it alleges that Twitch is responsible for showcasing via its algorithm scantily clad women in order to get the attention of viewers. And despite this first lawsuit being thrown out, it does highlight an exploitable issue of content moderation on the platform. Now, lawsuits, motions, and appeals all cost money. And while Twitch's legal division may have a handle on this process as a whole, we need to think critically about the damage that this can cause the Twitch brand, the Twitch partners, and how the Twitch partners provide these services on Twitch's own platform. Consider the recent case of Patrick Highsky1, who was a 12-year-old who created an account with the platform, but was quickly discovered to be underage. Now, this case is particularly highly publicized in that he lied about his age and continued to stream until it was discovered about his being underage. Now, this is an instance of how this, despite his channel being deactivated until he's of age, it's a reminder that this does and can still happen. In regards to underage access to mature content and the loose controls over mature content exposure, we should maintain by erring on the side of caution to avoid ethical dilemmas. Now, consider the amount of time and money Twitch has spent in courts. In 2019, Twitch has spammed the platform with, Twitch was spammed with on their platform with violent imagery and pornography by a few users. Now, there's unmitigated access from a couple of these people, and the terms of service aren't just a guideline, but they're an operating principle. It's a contract. There's other examples of deplorable platform practices that can land Twitch in hot water, and some of those include what's called hate raids. In 2021 alone, Twitch yet again sought legal restitution against 2 other users, Twitch suing users because of these practices. Now, they were discovered to be operating outside of the United States, but they debased their entire platform with abhorrent material that was violent, pornographic, and offensive to everyone. Now, Twitch may have a handle on some of their content moderation, but these people are still making accounts in bots, and they're still affecting the platform as a whole. This is an example of an exploit, a weakened system, and more importantly, it's an example that keeps Twitch in courts and costs Twitch money. Avoiding these legal entanglements saves Twitch money and protects the Twitch brand. The bottom line, it's more beneficial to be proactive than reactive in terms of addressing ethical problems within a legal framework. And now I'd like to pass it off to Chris for a discussion on our finances.
Hello, Twitch Board of Directors, and thank you, Justin, for passing it off to me. My name is Christopher Sanchez, and I'm the financial consultant for our firm. I'm here to cover Twitch's current revenue and statistics, the money being lost out by not addressing these ethical concerns, and how we can turn that around. Let's first begin by analyzing Twitch's revenue and statistics in order to understand why Twitch needs to tighten its control on the security for the better of all audiences. Twitch raked in a staggering $2.8 billion by the end of 2022, with 2.5 million concurrent viewers to boot. This is a dramatic increase from when the company was first bought out by Amazon in 2014. And Twitch is currently the largest live streaming platform globally, with millions of eyes engaging its content daily. With this, Twitch has an additional responsibility to ensure the safety of its audiences and regulate the content they're able to access in order to stay financially successful. Twitch is currently outclassing its competitors, YouTube Gaming and Facebook Gaming, trumping their watch times 4 times over. Now, this may sound like Twitch is in a good state and doesn't have to do anything, but it's quite the opposite. Twitch has millions of users leaving every year with millions of dollars in profit being lost because of it. And if change does not start to happen, we will see rise to the competitors who will ensure the safety of both the streamers and the viewers. Let's talk more about this pattern of lost users. As my colleague Justin mentioned before, the site is currently banned in 4 different countries. With Twitch not being available in these countries, of course, the users will have to go somewhere else. Case in point, Chinese audiences are flocking to the streaming service Huya, which, according to the company, amassed an outstanding $300 million by the end of 2022 with 5.5 million paying users. The support of just one of China's streaming services alone would add a substantial amount of revenue to Twitch's wallet each year. But again, it's because of Twitch's current guidelines and security policies that we're losing out on this money. Imagine if we could get all 4 countries back on board. Now, it is possible to bring these countries back. The success of live streaming services is there as proven by the performance of Huya. And with Twitch, all of Twitch's money and technological prowess, it is perfectly feasible for Twitch to replicate some of these policies in order to be more in line with each country's respective laws. I would like to now pass it off to Oliver for a little bit about our solutions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris. Good afternoon. My name is Oliver Lotzko, and I'm Level Up Solutions Management Consultant. The solutions we're going to present to you all today not only seek to resolve the ethical issues that we have laid out in our presentation, but also we want to improve upon the billion-dollar profit engine that Twitch has been able to build in the last several years. We believe that by implementing these solutions we will be presenting you today, that Twitch will not only be able to improve the user experience of its users, but also will be able to protect the younger demographics who love using Twitch every single day. And I believe that is an incredibly valuable, successful tool. So let's begin with our solutions roadmap. Number 1, we want to better enforce content guidelines. Number 2, employing a sophisticated age verification system. And 3, addressing the vulnerabilities that exist on the platform. Moving on to solution number 1, better defining content guidelines. As Liana discussed earlier, the one-size-fits-all model has been found to be incredibly insufficient on Twitch. There is no barrier to entry when trying to access different forms of content creation, especially when we're talking about younger demographics who may be exposed to inappropriate imagery or content on just chatting streams or gaming that may contain violent and graphic content. We're going to explain this concept later, but using the age verification tools that we're going to expand upon, we can actually block certain demographics from inappropriate imagery and content and open access to more content that may be age appropriate for those younger demographics in other spheres of Twitch.
Thank you so much for bringing up this solution. Now, specifically about having more strict and clear guidelines defined for the streamer, Twitch is able to increase its profits each year by protecting the streamers. There are hundreds of thousands of streamers being banned daily by violating the current user agreements. This means Twitch is never running at 100% efficiency, and it's always losing a considerable amount of money by not having these streamers up and running. An example of a major income loss would be with Kai Cenat, who is currently the top Twitch streamer, bar none. With an outstanding 980,000 daily hours watched, he's definitely a great financial asset for the company. There's only one problem. He's been banned multiple times before for violating the terms of service, with the most recent being this year for his consumption of edibles on stream. And working with our statistics department, we were able to calculate the amount of money that Twitch lost due to his absence for his week-long ban, this being about $14 million. Now, the solution is clear. If guidelines were more stricter about what Kai could do on stream, and if minors were not allowed to access his clearly 18+ content, he would most likely not have been banned, and both he and Twitch would be able to reap the benefits of his services.
Thank you, Chris. So next, we're going to move on to solution number 2, developing a sophisticated age verification system. As it stands right now, there is no substantial age verification system on major streaming platforms, including your competitor YouTube and Twitch. Therefore, we believe here at Level Up Consulting that implementing a sophisticated age verification system will make Twitch stand out, not just for its security, but the ways in which it can improve user experience on the platform. As it stands right now, as we've gone over, anyone on Twitch that the user verification system deems 13 or older can access any content on the platform unrestricted. But what does an age verification system look like? Well, Twitch would know because in November of 2022, you all actually implemented one, a phone system verification that not only terminated the accounts of individuals under the age of 13, but also strengthened the platform's security in and of itself. That security system is just one example of how Twitch can implement these age verification systems to make the platform better. But we here at Level Up Consulting believe this can go much further. Payment identifications, such as credit cards and debit cards, are a good way to verify identity and age. Legal identification, such as a driver's license, and email and phone call verifications, and strengthening those kinds of verifications are all ways in which Twitch can not only protect younger demographics, but also improve the overall user experience on Twitch in and of itself.
With this solution, by implementing substantial protective measures through means of age authentication, you can drastically reduce the number of younger audiences able to access mature content and profit off of it. The current demographics of Twitch show that a majority of the viewing audience is between the age of 13 and 24. This creates a substantial problem because most of the top games streamed on Twitch are rated as M for mature. These games contain content that is not appropriate for a middle schooler. And this creates two potential dangers. One, as my colleague Liana stated before, consuming this content is detrimental to the development of these children, and it is also detrimental to Twitch in terms of finances, because eventually parents will catch on that their kids are not consuming content appropriate for them. This means that we will see a potential breach in trust with the platform, and we will see these users being taken off of the platform. This percentage shows that a massive source of Twitch's revenue stream comes from younger audiences. And in order to protect the moneymakers, we need to ensure that they are going to stick around and view content that would be most appealing and appropriate for their age.
Lovely. And finally, our third solution is addressing vulnerability. If you look back towards the beginning of our presentation, Rihanna made an incredibly important point about vulnerability. She actually gave a real-life story about two individuals who were predated upon while live streaming on Twitch. And now, while these individuals were underage, that problem will be fixed with the age verification system. There are also facets on Twitch that are especially vulnerable, and this is what we want to address. In this case, vulnerability is the potential to fall victim to online predation and exposure to inappropriate content. We here at Level Up Consulting believe that we can implement a benchmark approach. If you think about other social media companies such as TikTok and YouTube, they actually use this approach with different facets of their own platforms. For instance, TikTok requires you to have a certain benchmark of followers before you can start live streaming. We believe that Twitch can actually implement something similar to this. If an individual is too young to stream, then they would be disbarred from those kinds of facets in Twitch. However, if an individual reaches a certain age threshold, then that opening would be available to begin streaming and additionally access other points of vulnerability, such as direct messaging and whispering features and payment, such as donations to streamers. Keep in mind that these facets on Twitch have been historical vulnerabilities for child predation and inappropriate content exposure. And so we believe by addressing these vulnerabilities towards the benchmark approach, that would be an incredibly effective solution for combating this problem.
For a final solution, prohibiting young Twitch users from interacting with older ones in a private manner, we can see how this would help protect the viewership numbers of our majority demographic. According to the Bloomberg research mentioned earlier, 280,000 users were targeted by predators. Along with terrible press, this also once again results in a breach of trust with the platform. Working again with our statistics department, we had them calculate how much money would be lost daily if all 280,000 of these users were to leave from finding out that they were the targets of predators. We got this number of about $1 million daily from their loss. The responsibility of both Twitch and parents to protect users on the platform directly affects the revenue stream of the system. And to reiterate, Twitch is losing millions of dollars by not addressing these ethical concerns. I would now like to pass it off to Oliver for a solutions roadmap.
Thank you so much, Chris. Finally, I want to talk to you all about implementing these solutions. Over the course of a year, I believe we can do several things. Community input from both creators and Twitch users to how we can better the security systems on Twitch. Number 2, software and technology development. We believe that this is going to take the most amount of time to develop these security systems. Then site testing and feedback, soft launching this hardware and development onto Twitch in certain spheres to ensure it's working properly. Then a hard launch, officially releasing the newly developed software, targeting the ethical issues we highlighted in our presentation. And finally, an initial success report to summarize the ways in which the security features may be working and not working so that we can go forward and improve. With that, I'd like to conclude the presentation with Rihanna.
Can't hear you. Can't hear you.
Muted.
Hello, and thank you again. We urge you to consider our solution, and we would like to open the floor for any questions.
Thank you very much. If you can dispense with your video, we'll have everyone come back with their faces so that we can see each other more easily. Great. Thanks very much. We invited you here because we wanted to have your information. I'm wondering if you could give us an understanding of how you reached that $1 million a day was being lost. What's the research behind that? I mean, numbers are thrown around, but I want to understand from how you're assessing what we're losing.
All right, so I can answer that actually.
Great.
So we created a hypothetical ratio of $5 an ad for every 1 ad an hour. And this is supposed to resemble the kind of cut that Twitch is giving to its streamers just in ad revenue alone. Now, we did some research and found out that the daily average watch time of a user on Twitch was about 90 minutes. So by taking this ratio that we have established already and multiplying it by the daily watch time, as well as multiplying it by each user who would be using that daily average watch time. Finally, multiplying it by the 45% cut that Twitch receives from its ad revenue. And that's how we got about that $1 million that we mentioned before.
Okay, thank you. I will invite my other colleagues to ask their questions, and we'll just do it a question each time and keep going around.
So this is Alison. As a member of the board of directors, I'm deeply concerned by what you have raised here. And I'm really surprised that we haven't put in place an adequate age verification system. But I'm curious about it seems to me to be so easy to put in requiring a driver's license, which could be checked electronically very quickly. I don't see why it should take a particularly long time to do that, or a credit card. So why have these been suggested before? Is this what other companies do? Has anybody really solved this problem?
As I mentioned in my speech, Twitch has a unique opportunity to distinguish itself from some of our competitors at YouTube, who are our main competitors in the streaming platform. As it stands, the solutions that we presented are unique because no other streaming platform has really implemented the kind of sophisticated infrastructure to actually support these solutions in the first place. When you think about the ways in which age identification and identity verification are handled for instance, banks to protect against fraud, etc. Those are the kinds of systems we're thinking about, because if you're talking about payment methods, if you're talking about streaming, putting an individual self out there on the internet to public view, those are very vulnerable moments. And we want to make sure that our users are protected every step of the way. Those are the reasons for why we wanted to include such an intricate method of age verification through the credit cards, through verifying driver's licenses. Personally, I don't think it's much to ask for someone to verify an identity on these kinds of platforms for the ways in which we ask an individual to put themselves out there publicly on our platform.
So which companies have done this with credit cards? I mean, I'm shocked to hear this is the state of, and that you simply put in an age and it is up to do it later. We should be able to eliminate that step and say you can't get on until we have some verification. I'm surprised this takes so long to fix. It's not like a new problem. It's been there for years. Who is using any of these systems you've described?
So are you talking about other social media companies?
YouTube, for example, or TikTok, what are they doing?
TikTok and YouTube, as I highlighted in my speech, do not have these security developments in place. That's why we are advocating for you all at Twitch to implement these solutions so that not only will you stand out amongst your competitors because you're implementing sophisticated security systems, but also because it will improve the user experience on Twitch exponentially. When we talk about the ways in which Twitch already handles payment methods, for instance, individuals can donate to streamers, for example. Twitch already has the infrastructure to protect those payment methods, right? That has been a system that has existed with Twitch for years. We are saying simply, we want to add an additional layer to that. Instead, we're not saying take away age payment methods. You can, of course, still donate to your favorite streamer. What we're saying is maybe we should include payment identification as a way of age verification as well, so that a 12-year-old trying to pose as a 13-year-old can just take their mother's credit card and just start donating to a streamer. That is the kind of security implementation we're talking about here.
Okay.
Thank you. Jonathan? Any
Yeah,
questions?
also as a member of the board, I was also considering what is the market share relative to the other competitors for the streaming industry? I would just like to kind of gauge, like, is Twitch like top tier, or are they like number three compared to like YouTube or any other streaming companies?
So Twitch is actually number one. When compared to YouTube gaming and Facebook gaming, in 2022 alone, and actually in the past, the watch times on these platforms showed that Twitch received 4 times the amount of viewership hours and viewers in total compared to these platforms.
Okay, and is that due to the numbers of streamers they have in their platform?
I believe so. I believe there is more notable Twitch streamers as opposed to YouTube and Facebook gaming streamers. And of course, these streamers need to be protected because they're bringing in huge waves of audiences to the platform.
Okay. No, I like that. I like that point of view, but have we ever thought of like adding more of these restrictions and possibly losing the additional creation of users? Would we be losing our streamers to competitors who are like, for example, TikTok has done many sponsorship promoting other streamers to move to their platform? Has that been considered?
Yes, actually, Twitch, they already do this sort of thing where they offer specific deals. That's why when we did the calculation for our hypothetical ratio of $5 per ad, Twitch actually gives unique offers to these streamers so that they will join their platform, and also to the current standing streamers. That way they can receive a steady inflow of money and stay on the platform.
Okay, thank you.
Marie?
So I have a kind of a two-tiered question, and what I'd love to hear from all of you is some of your thoughts on what are some of the potential barriers or hiccups to the solutions that you propose that you kind of anticipating needing to manage. And in particular, one thing I'm thinking about is the ask for some form of identification. And if you have a plan for folks who maybe are under 16 and don't have any form of identification, or who are over 16 and are adults but don't have a driver's license or a passport or anything like that because they simply don't need it or they don't drive. So just thoughts on how to maintain inclusivity with these new barriers you might put into place.
So thank you for your question. I think it's a very good point you bring up, because one of the things we were considering when we were talking about the solutions we could implement was the fact that oftentimes age verification systems are very complicated to navigate, right? Especially when you're trying to bring them onto your platform. There's a lot of logistics involved, and we believe that yes, in our solutions, we included just a few ways in which Twitch can verify age and identity, right? Through the legal identification, as you said, but some individuals below, for example, the age of 16 may not have a driver's license per se. Individuals may not have the payment for credit cards and debit cards, right? That would be used to verify identity or age. In this sense, then we would revert back to the effectiveness of even just an email and phone call verification, right? So when you're thinking about how you all at Twitch implemented a phone call verification system in November of last year, that alone was able to not only find and terminate accounts that were owned by individuals under the age of 12, but it was also able to better allow individuals who were of age to actually stay on the platform and become verified in terms of age. It's a very good point you bring up with the ways in which an individual may not have an identification, a legal ID, or some kind of payment ID. But again, the use of even just Gmail or email and phone verifications is incredibly effective. I don't think this should be lost.
And I also wanted to add on to that as well. There is also another layer to all this, and that's the parents. So another thing that we touched on a lot was kind of the fact that parents were losing trust with the platform as well. They were seeing their children have access to this content. So another avenue that we could potentially implement as well is some kind of parental form of identification or confirmation. Because, you know, in the terms of service, parents are supposed to be bound to the terms of service for children that are below the age of majority, but we don't see that being confirmed or asked in the sign-up process. So this is another step that we should also be implementing. So we know that there is a parent or guardian there, like with this person that is aware of what this minor is doing. as well on that's another solution to protect minors in particular.
Yeah.
And I would like to add to that as well. When it comes to identification, we did consider some issues that we might run into abroad. And we understand that the IDs that we have here in America can look different in other places. And that might mean passports, it might mean a birth certificate, or it could be some local form of ID that we don't recognize here in the US. And so we would have teams in place for specific countries, especially the ones that we're losing out in markets in that Chris touched on earlier. I believe it was China, Iran, Slovakia, places like that. If we put this identification system in process, that will allow them to get back into our market because they are cutting off the material, the content on Twitch that they don't want certain demographics in their country to be exposed to.
Thank
Other
you.
questions? Other questions from board members?
I do have another question. This is more for the legality. Were there any other research done regarding like laws or like laws not within the US? I know for example, Europe has their own data privacy law. So in terms of how they're collecting that type of data, is it going to be streamlined and implemented the same way it would be in the US?
I was hoping somebody would ask me a question about law. So within the United States, the two Supreme Court cases that we're actually sitting on, depending on the court decisions that the Supreme Justices side on, it'll drastically alter everything that has to do with culpability of platforms and the contents pushed out within the states. And a lot of it has the potential to be modeled over data privacy laws into our neighbors across the pond, so to speak, to Europe and other countries. That's why, particularly now, a lot of the internet providers and platforms operate under almost kind of a veil of protection under the Title Code 47 of the U.S. Code, Section 230. It's all about the Human Decency Act portrayal and distribution of media. So its legality in itself is fickle, and it's hard to actually expound upon for a future date. All we have to really build on right now is our precedents and to go off of what we know is legal now and what we have the potential to speculate on in the future. So depending on these two court cases, which have been on the floor for a while, it could go incredibly more restrictive and cost Twitch a lot of money if somebody is shown the wrong thing, or it could go the other way and Twitch doesn't have to worry about lawsuits except for the extreme, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, it does. And then it kind of ties to, I want to expand on that. And actually this will then kind of tailor more to the ethical perspective of what you guys think it would be. Because how far would Twitch need to go to satisfy the law? But then what is also the ethical thing to do? And because like someone mentioned earlier, children were being harmed to these gamblings, which were causing mental issues and stuff like that, so it should be banned. But then it begs the question, what about elderlies who are also in the same predicament? Should elderlies be banned and be restricted from watching Twitch? If anybody has any input on that.
Yeah, so just to start off by addressing the legal question in particular. So, I mean, when you're looking as a business at any decision, you want to make sure that it's not going to cost you a very large amount of money. So you have to be meeting the legal requirements in every single country that you're going to as a baseline. Now, of course, we know that law doesn't always equal ethicality, but in most instances, law is the baseline. So not to say that law is unethical, but just to say that we can always go further than what the law is initially requiring. So in the instance that you bring up with the elderly, something we really want to focus in on, the reason why we really wanted to focus in on children in particular was because at this point in their development, they're not considered moral agents. They don't have the capacity in many instances to understand the kind of consequences they're getting themselves into. So, they think they're above gambling addictions and mental health issues, so they choose to continue to watch this content. They think they're above the issues that happen when it comes to watching mature content and exposing yourself to that kind of content. They're not developed at that stage. Whereas somebody that is an adult, yes, they can suffer certain problems, but again, we want to focus in on the fact that children lack moral agency, where adults often have the ability to choose for themselves what they do and do not expose themselves to, with the knowledge of these consequences in mind.
So I have another question from that. I understand that there are solutions possible, may take some time, but what's going to be the ROI for Twitch to implement some of these changes?
Return on investment?
Yeah, so I can kind of handle that question. So when we're talking about return on investment, Chris did a really fantastic job at highlighting the ways in which particular streamers who kind of build their entire portfolio around showcasing perhaps more mature content on Twitch, getting banned because Twitch doesn't have, anyone who the system deems 13 and older can access any sphere of content on Twitch. And that's where you have problems arising, where you may have younger individuals being exposed to things that may be inappropriate content for them. So that is one aspect of it. But when you're talking about the return on investment that you get from this, I have to go back to the ways in which it would not only make Twitch look more sophisticated and have them stand out more in the instance of how our competitors such as YouTube do not have substantial security measures as the ones we are proposing now. That is very important to think about, especially when you think about the narratives that Rihanna gave at the beginning of our presentation. There are people whose lives have been dramatically altered because of the security insecurities on Twitch. And that demonstrably lowers not only it demonstrably lowers our reputation, not only as a company, but also as a streaming platform. That is something your competitors can take advantage of. And so I think it's very important to think about implementing these security issues will not only improve Twitch as a whole, but will also improve our general image.
But I'm asking my question on behalf of our shareholders. Twitch has shareholders. And I'm asking, what's the return on the investment? It will cost Twitch money. I'm not so concerned about the streamers' amount of money they make or not make. I'm concerned about my shareholders, Twitch's shareholders, because this will cost time and money, and it may reduce the revenue short term, but long term it may improve. I want to understand the ROI to us, not the users of the platform. Did you do that type of analysis?
We did. So when you think about the ways in which the Bloomberg reporting on child predation on Twitch was published, I can assure you that no shareholder would be happy to have any kind of stake in a company that has that kind of investigation upon them. So in that sense, I believe that it is in Twitch's best interest in any scenario that in the case that individuals on their platform of particularly young demographic are being systemically targeted on the platform by predators and are being exposed to inappropriate content, I would personally say as a shareholder that that is absolutely unacceptable. And if I had any stake
So
in a
if I'm a
company,
shareholder, and I say that, I'm just going to sell your stock. I mean, that's not important to me.
is-
I want my investment to give me a return.
Yeah, so just to kind of add on to that a little bit. So when you're thinking about, I think the reason why we were talking about streamers in particular when it comes to this question is the fact that streamers and the way they make money is intimately connected to the way Twitch makes money. So when you have streamers that are being demonetized at high rates, like what's going on Twitch and on other similar platforms, which again is a reason why we think implementing our solution can make Twitch stand out. By demonetizing these creators and these huge creators all the time, Twitch is losing out on the money that they're making. They make 45% of their ad revenue. And so when these streamers are no longer online, they're no longer making this revenue. So when you can see how that would how that's already greatly impacting this money that these shareholders are making. And when we're looking at the cost of implementing the solutions in particular, we also know that there's highly sophisticated engineers already working at Twitch that have the capacities to create these kind of systems at their already salaried wage. So we can see that this kind of implementing of the policies wouldn't cost Twitch as much money just because of the creative talent they already have. And we can see that by keeping these guidelines separate, we can have creators not worry as much about being demonetized, which then makes Twitch less worried about itself losing money also.
I need to interrupt because we've gone over time in this session, and what matters particularly is for you to get our feedback, because what we care about is how you shape all of this without the video, without your PowerPoint tomorrow, because you have 10 minutes to make the power of the ethical point. And I'm just going to remind you of what's being asked tomorrow so that our conversation can focus on that. You've been called back. You gave your full presentation. We've asked you for a second visit. You can only speak about ethical aspects and to explain why your solution successfully handles any ethical issues. There'll be no Q&A, there'll be no slides, and you don't want more than 2 or 3 members of your team to do this. So I want to just frame that for a minute, but because we have to be out in 20 minutes, I want to give us some time to quickly give you feedback on today so you know, and then to talk about what is best, in our opinion, for how you can succeed tomorrow in 10 minutes. And then there has to be some time for you to ask us questions. So we have a lot of work to do in the next few minutes. I would like to start and say that your answer in the you're starting in the beginning with that story was terrific. It was a great way to create, with minimal words, a huge amount of focus on what's important. I'm wondering if you've read a couple of articles that might be helpful to you if you haven't, because it may give you some additional ideas in what you're doing. One article is, I think both of them are in the Washington Post. One article is called "As AI Booms, Tech Firms Are Laying Off Their Ethicists." And it is the Washington Post, and it was published on March the 30th, 2023. And it talks about Twitch. And then there's another that is also a Washington Post article that has a really interesting title that you don't want to miss. It's "How Twitch Lost Its Way." And that seems like did you read that? Did you see it? Okay, I didn't think so. So I want to make sure that you pick up that. It's a 3/23/2023 article. And the author was Nathan Grayson, for whatever that's worth. But I think those 2 articles will be useful to you if you haven't had that as a frame of reference as you begin to think about your 10 minutes. I think also it's really important for you to, Oliver, you gave to Allison's first question, you gave not first question, but her last question. Your first comments were pretty vague. And then you zeroed in on a powerful statement about whatever. I mean, I can't remember exactly, but it was very powerful. It had to do with the impact on the children and all of that. Think tomorrow about how you create in limited space, whoever is doing this, the most impactful, factual, and relevant ways of creating on the part of a clearly difficult company that's having clearly difficult problems, seeing reality. So those would be my first thoughts. I think you did a really good job, but let's turn it over to Jonathan. Do you want to pick up on that? And we're all obviously now in our own persona.
Okay, no, yeah. No, you guys did an awesome job. I was very impressed. I work in the consulting capacity, and you guys did very well with probably little or no experience. So I think you guys did a fantastic job. I did like the way Allison handled those questions, because that was very good. Those are tough questions where, like, I've been in those positions, and the best honest thing I would say is I'm not sure. I'll probably get back to you on that. And I think there could have been other ways to maneuver that, but it went well. And I know, like, that was a tough question to even like consider right at that moment. I was gonna say a little feedback, I love the theme overall. You guys are very consistent, referencing each other back and forth. That was a good job. I would like to see more of like the solution and the cost of implementing the stuff. I know it's hard to estimate that because no one else has done it. Like,
Excuse me for interrupting. They can't talk about money, and they
okay.
can't talk about legal tomorrow. It is only the ethical, and that will waste you time. I mean, you're very right, Jonathan,
Right.
about that, but it will waste them precious time, and it's in the rules. So whoever is their judge tomorrow would take that off.
Okay.
So the point is brilliant, but it doesn't work for the 10 minutes. It would work for another time if you were giving this. Okay, continue. I'm sorry.
But no, I would I agree with what Gail said, like drive the point about like focus on that story. That was actually this thing that still kept in my mind, the story of those children being like targeted. And that kind of like will capture pretty much everything that's going forward. So, but besides that, it was very good.
So
Marie, Allison?
give a couple of comments. Congratulations, by the way. I think you did a really good job. However, I got the message that it's a problem very quickly. I didn't need quite so much sort of to lead in. I was much more interested in what are the solutions? Are there answers to this? Is it possible? Because to me, I mean, I'm a parent. It is absolutely ethically wrong for a company not to put in some controls if it's possible, feasible, and if they work. And to me, it's not a question of the question is, why haven't they done it? Why hasn't TikTok done it even? Because it's shocking that this goes on. It's been a problem for a long time. So I think you can go much quicker because the message is easy to sell to a parent, maybe not to the 13-year-old, but certainly to the parents, that this is an ethical challenge. And I still don't understand fully why it's not been put in place. Which is why I asked the money question at the end, because is it the money? I don't know. But why not?
Marie, what do you think about what's going on?
Yeah, so I would say a lot of the why not are the ethical issues that are involved, right? When we think about people who don't have IDs, we think about people under 16, but actually there's a very large percentage of adults just in America we're thinking about right now that don't have any form of identification for various reasons. And then I thought Liana and Rihanna, am I pronouncing those correctly? Made some really good points as well as you start to get into other countries, right? So Twitch is not an American only company. I lived in Nigeria for 3 years, for instance, and very few people in Nigeria, everyone in Nigeria has some form of smartphone. Most of them use smartphones instead of computers. Not everyone has a form of identification. I can tell you from my experience of having to get a driver's license there, I understand why. So I think just be prepared for discussing that in a thoughtful manner, because as you did a really nice job of kind of pointing out those ethical dilemmas of how do you account for various IDs, how do you account for various populations that you want to bring into your into the Twitch domain, and how do you keep, how do you set up barriers so that you are keeping it safe without creating a situation where folks who want to be using the app and want to be adding more money and giving you more money can actually get on there. So I do think just be ready to, I thought you did a really nice, thoughtful job of talking about that. But just be ready to kind of really dig into that, because I think that, especially if it's really focusing on the ethics tomorrow, I imagine that that is going to be something that comes up. But I think you did a great job of talking to it. So
Who is doing the 90-second? Do you feel comfortable with what's expected of you in that?
Yes, very much.
Okay,
Actually,
so
I'm actually used to the fast-paced, straight to the point kind of speech.
okay, so then you're good with that. And probably a story would be whatever, but you've got 90 seconds, and this is really, I think it's one of the best of our three, because we want, when you all graduate and go off into your companies, we want you to have the kind of practice where you can call out when ethics isn't being considered, and how in 90 seconds you can get people's attention for what they've forgotten.
Yeah.
Do you
And
have any? Oh,
bring it-
sorry.
Bring it into everything you do. It's even the companies you choose to work for is an ethical decision for you, because if you work for a company that's sort of in a dodgy business, I, for example, could not work for a gambling company because it's such a challenge and such a problem. So just think about your own career and your own life, because ethics is everywhere around you.
Good point. Do you have any questions of us? How can we be of, what didn't we cover? What is it that would be useful to you to have from us? Anything?
I would just like a little clarification on the 10-minute part. So
Okay.
you say that everything has to be revolving around the ethics, right? And that
Right.
we're not allowed to talk about the financial and legal things. What if our approach is mentioning these financial and legal things, but with the aspect of ethics involved, where we're not necessarily talking about the money, but we're talking about maybe legal cases that emphasize the ethical issue and why this case demonstrates the ethical problem?
I think the challenge here is that you have only 10 minutes to talk about the ethical aspects of your solution and the problem. And while you integrated beautifully today, all three of them, we had much more time to hear you. And if you consider, put yourself forward a couple of years, that you're a consultant and you've pitched something and somebody wants you to come back and talk about it more deeply, it's important that you get deep, because that is where often people connect with why they have to do something. So you can make your own choice. I'm just saying that if you go the other way, you're not using time that you can use for what they've asked for. If that makes sense.
Yes, thank you so much. for that.
Gail, isn't it usually you need to get someone's attention that you know enough to give them really good advice? And it's the second meeting that's the 30-minute one. The first one is a much shorter one. It's usually that way round. We've got you
Right.
sort of backwards here.
Well, we don't have you backwards because we want to make sure that you can give a kind of presentation that will integrate the key issues. But I mean, you're right. In the real world, you know, you have a big thing first, but in this one, you know, I mean, you have a small thing first and then you get a bigger one. But in this one, I think it's really being done because ethics is not really focused on in most situations. So we're doing our best to advance that. Any other questions? I just want to say that
But sorry.
no, I just want to say quickly that I was so impressed, Rihanna, with how you handled something that just is the last thing anybody wants at the beginning of a competition. And yet you handled it with grace and with total calm. And Leanna, you were very calm. And, you know, it's made sense from the beginning that you all get together because I can see pictures in every single view. So I know you're all together. But, you know, you handled it well. And then when the technology didn't work, you stepped in and you handled it well. So I think that presence and calm and confidence, you are a very confident team. And I think that's hugely important. So I just wanted to say that, and please ask your question. I apologize for interrupting you.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Yes, that was my worst nightmare. We practiced a Zoom call ahead of time just to make sure connectivity was a-okay, and when it was go time, it just didn't work out. And then on top of that, I had audio issues. So thank you everyone for being so graceful with me and with my team. It definitely helped with the calmness. But I'm so happy to have had the opportunity to present in front of this panel today. And again, I just want to thank you for your time.
Who is going to do the 10-minute tomorrow? Christopher and Leanna.
Yeah.
And I think I can speak for all of us here. We wish you the best tomorrow.